Sitting here with my buddy Danny from Chicago. He's a crazy man. A lot of the things that we usually have conversations about are not appropriate for YouTube, so we'll be not talking about that, but we're going to talk about real estate and all the really, really crazy but cool things you do in real estate. Introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey guys, I'm Danny Dowd from Highland Park, Illinois. Me and my wife lived in Highland Park for 10 years now, focusing on high-end rehabs and starting to get into the rental game.
Nice. He's a CPA that does crazy rehab. So like I talked about earlier, he put $650,000 into a project. So let's talk about where you found it. You guys are going to see a lot of before and after pictures being thrown out as we're chatting. But before we do all that, make sure to hit the
like button.
You did much better that time. Hit the like button. We'd really appreciate it on this channel. I do my best to have as much fun as I can, as well as provide as much impact and education as possible for free. So hit that like button. All right, so Danny, how did you come across this property and how much did you pay for it initially on the purchase?
Sure, so this was a house we saw in the MLS. We went there the first day on the market, as you have to do to get a good deal. It was listed for $450,000. And it was an 1800s farmhouse, so built in the 1880s.
I tell people avoid houses over 100 years unless you're Danny.
That's right. That's our bread and butter, though, going after these unique, distinct homes. That's what gives us that little edge on everybody else. So we saw the house first day on the market. It was 1,700 square feet. It needed way too much work to be able to do anything with the existing structure. But we kind of took our time. Played with the floor plan, tried to see if there was a way to do it with the existing floor plan. The only way to make any money from the house was to do an addition on it. It was next to probably $1.7 million houses and listed in the threes, so mainly, or listed in the fours, mainly just for the land value.
Yeah, all right, so a couple things to note there is he got it on the MLS, which means on market. So there are deals on market. This was a few years ago, but still there are deals on market if you make connections with the right real estate agents like you did, because you weren't an agent at the time. So you just got to be persistent and consistent and you'll be able to find deals on market. Second, we do 75, 80 rehabs a year, probably average of $20,000 to $50,000 rehab. You do a couple a year, but you're getting, you're doing $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 rehabs. There's different ways to make money in real estate. So kind of along those lines, before we get into how you funded the deal, because that's interesting, you got it under contract for that $350,000, but you like to put a ton of work in these because you enjoy bringing it out. Why don't you talk a little bit about the enjoyment and fulfillment you get?
Well, let me kind of take a few steps back.
You can.
So the acquisition was made, so they were asking $450,000, and we let it sit on the market for a little bit of time to kind of, like you mentioned, let the market determine the value. So nobody had picked it up, nobody made any offers. There was only one builder that made quite a low ball offer. I think $200,000 under just a Hail Mary. So we ended up writing them a letter. This is a big point to how we acquire a lot of our homes is we give them a heartfelt letter telling them how great the property is, how much we love it, that we're going to keep it, preserve it, but also modernize it. We go through all of them, gut rehabs, and so it's really connecting with the owner rather than just killing them and saying what's wrong with the house. Really just saying it's not within your budget, and this is how it can become in your budget, and you can help each other.
So in those letters, you kind of talk about your vision and passion that you have for these projects, because it's not just about the money. You almost, I feel like, enjoy the other parts of it almost more than the money.
Sure.
More.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's fun doing these one-off properties because you're never doing the same design. We don't use the same fixture in any of our other projects. Everything is unique to that home, to that vibe. And if you look at all of our trackers at preservationrestoration.com, you'll see our before and afters. And see the kind of work we're doing. It's never the same, and we're always evolving.
You always enjoy that.
Which is the fun part.
I like that. So you got it under contract for $350,000. You wrote a letter that kind of helped hopefully seal the deal, so you got a decent discount. But now it needs $650,000. So how did you get that $350,000 and how did you get that $650,000? Because a lot of people on here struggle with coming up, and I did when I got started, coming up with $100,000 to buy it and $20,000 to rehab it. So how'd you come up with $1 million freaking bucks?
So this was family and friends money. I had renovated my dad's house, the house I grew up in, back in 2013. helped him sell it, and he ended up having a couple $100,000 in cash that I added onto with my home equity line for my home. And we ended up buying it cash and pulling out a home equity line on that house as him as the primary owner. So that was kind of a clever way to put our money in, acquire it, and then pull some money out of it to rehab it. And then I put my home equity line on that too.
So what he did was use some cash that he scrounged together and then use equity that was in current projects. His house, his dad's house. You can use equity in your personal houses as well as your rehabs, or as well as your rentals or whatever it is. You can pull equity out, and it's usable equity. If you owe $200,000 and the house is worth $400,000, that $200,000 you can tap into that to fund rehabs and such, which is exactly what you did. So you got creative. So talk about the hardest part about the I can't even imagine putting $650,000 into a house. You absolute nut job.
Well,
talk about the hardest part.
First we thought it was only going to take 400.
Okay, well there you go. That's kind of how these things go.
And then we fell down the hill.
Only went a quarter million over budget. Is that good, Matt? Okay, Matt says good.
Thanks. So I think the biggest part is the first roadblock was our permit submittal. So the house was too far forward on the lot, and the addition we proposed was going to be within that front yard setback, which is the space between the house and the front yard that they allow you to build on. So that was our first roadblock. I got creative and said, hey, let's split up these permits into two for the addition. We'll go through the variance process with that addition. Let's rehab the current house. We're not wasting time. So it ended up being basically two remodels. One on the existing structure, we got it to drywall, we stopped, and then we started the second one.
How long did it take you to get that, to get the property rehab? How long was that rehab
So
process?
we finished the first rehab up to drywall in about, I think, 4 months. And then we got our permits in August, which was 6 months later after we closed. And I think we finished the mid next year, the following year, with the rehab.
So it was about a year and a half, 2 years.
Year and a half, yeah.
So
year and a half worth of work, yeah.
So big project, if you got $1 million into a project, it's going to be a big project. It's going to take time. So let's talk a little bit about, before we talk about what he listed for, how much money he made on it, let's talk a little bit about doing those finer touches, those finer finishing. Because I think whether you're listing a mid-level, entry-level, mid-level type house in St. Louis for $300,000, which is a $500,000 house in Chicago, which is a $150,000 house in Oklahoma, which is $800,000 house in Miami, whatever that mid price point is, whether you're doing it there or the high end, talk about those little finishes and touches and why you do them and what kind of difference.
Sure, I think that's the biggest thing that sets us apart. It kills we've asked probably per square foot double the existing the current market value.
If a house sells for $200 a square foot, he's selling it for $350 to $400 a square foot, just showing that it's the same house, but he's getting so much more because of the finishes.
Sure. And it's that attention to detail, the passion, knowing what finishes to put in, what house, and just kind of making it all flow together is the biggest thing that.
Yeah. So I would say a pro tip for that is just look at the competition, and if they have, granite countertops with no backsplash and new cabinets, do granite countertops, backsplash with new cabinets.
Sure.
Just basically what I'm trying to say is take what's already out there and make it a little bit nicer.
That's right.
Depending on what's going on. Because your house, you had incredible finishes because it was the high end, but you don't need to put marble countertops with, gold plated everything on a $300,000 house. So check the competition and make it a little bit nicer. In your case, the sky's the limit because the competition was just incredibly huge, nice mansions.
Huge. Yeah.
Awesome. So, drum roll. There's a drum there. Hopefully the producer's going to edit it in there. So, how much did you sell?
Was that the like button or no?
No, that's not like button. Okay. How much money did you make on the property? What did you sell it for? How quick did it take you to sell it, all that?
So we sold it, the property sold in 66 days. We got it under contract January 1st. We had multiple offers. We ended up getting 1.3 without seller's commission. Or buyer's commission.
Buyer's commission. Okay.
So awesome. that was an extra $30,000. So 133.
Nice. So what did you end up making home netting after everything, all paying your realtor, paying everything that you owe?
So netting was 196 in 2 years.
So you made a couple $100,000 in 2 years. That included, he already had paid himself for all his time. So a couple
and
$100,000
education, right?
And education.
All that education.
Which they get for free.
Yeah, that's right.
By watching this channel.
That's right.
Tell them what to do. What do they need to do?
Subscribe.
There you go. He did it this time. He screwed up a lot earlier in the practice round.